Thanks for attending my presentation. It's going to be SOLIDWORKS tips and tricks, the next level. So I'm going to start out with some basic stuff when we get into this, but it's only because I want to relate things and getting some feedback. I don't want to mess with the mic. So yeah, we're going to try to relate some things here, but the general consensus here is we're going to gain the edge and understanding of some SOLIDWORKS tips and tricks. We really want to try and reduce mouse miles. Everybody know what mouse miles are? Who knows what mouse miles are in here? Yeah, so we want to try and reduce those, right? Because that can really speed us up in our processes. When you talk about model mania, how do they achieve model mania and win those? They're doing it by reducing mouse miles. They're doing it by, utilizing some of these tips and tricks. And then, of course, the third thing I'd like you to take away is just implement at least one thing, and I'll talk more about that towards the end. Who am I? My name is Adam Ebernickel. I'm a senior designer, product engineering at Altec Industries. That's kind of my day gig. Really enjoy working for Altec. It's a great place to work, and they really treat us good and allow us to do things like this, as well as be a part of the SWUG community. I'm also an adjunct teacher. I do about three classes a semester at a local college. Co-lead the Western North Carolina Asheville SWUG, SOLIDWORKS user group. If you don't know about those guys, figure it out. They're up in the Hive. But it's a great group of people to be a part of and help learn as well. I'm also a SWUG committee member, so SOLIDWORKS User Group Network committee member for the whole southeast region of the U.S., Louisiana, Tennessee, and down. SOLIDWORKS Champion, certified SOLIDWORKS expert. And my next slide is going to talk about Iron SWUG co-founder. This is something that me and a buddy of mine rolled out last year. We rode 2,200 miles on our Harleys, went to 6 different SWUG groups, presented brand new presentations, so it was 12 brand new presentations between the two of us in 5 days. We're doing it again this next year, right? If you go to ironswug.com, that's going to show you our route where we're going this next year. You can participate in it. If you're at a local place, you can participate. If not, if you see at the top it says watch online, participate online. You're going to catch some good information. It's like World between the two of us, just riding our bikes. We're going north this year. We're going to finale at Waltham at headquarters. That QR code on there is there. You'll see it again at the end. So if you scan that, it'll take you right to the website. You can favorite that. Give everybody just 1 second to scan. If you don't catch it here, you'll catch it at the end. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so the key takeaways kind of mentioned that we're going to gain the edge and understanding. We're going to reduce mouse miles, and we're going to implement at least one thing. Make it yours. What do I mean by making it yours? We're going to customize, and customize, right? Many ways to customize. I'm not going to go too much in depth with that. I know some of my buddies done a presentation, talked about that already. You probably see it in the standard tips and tricks. So yeah, customize, make it yours. When you get your iPhone or your Android phone and you buy it, do you leave it stock? Do you change the wallpaper? Do you make the apps a little bit different? Do you make same concept here, right? You do that because you like it, you enjoy it, and you want to make it faster for yourself. So customize, customize, customize. Pesky dimensions, right? On-screen numeric input. There's a couple ways you can do this, but you can actually type in the dimension as you're doing a line, a circle, rectangle, whatever you're doing. You can type those dimensions in as you create them, and they'll actually go ahead and lock it in. And if you actually connect it to the origin in some fashion when you do that, then you're going to fully define as you go. So that's a good little tip. It'll help you out. How do you do that, though? There's 2 different ways. The main way you want to do is go into your system options, right? Go to sketches. That first blue box that you see kind of highlighted there, enable on-screen numeric input. You can do that, and that's going to make your length, right? So you say, I need a 2-inch line, as seen in this slide. I need a 2-inch line. It's going to create a 2-inch line. But unless you check that next box down that says create dimension only when value is entered, right, then that's what's going to give you your dimension and help you fully define those things as you go. Right. We're going to jump back and forth between AutoCAD and here. Some of the easier stuff like this, I don't know that I really need to demonstrate that. So if there's something I don't demonstrate and you want to see it, raise your hand, let me know. I'll do that too. There's also a way to do it within the flyout menu. So there's a button there. When you get that flyout menu, sketch numeric input. So that's another place it lives. More dimensions. Lock dimension orientation. Who has drawn an arc or a line at an angle and you want it to come off? And I will probably just jump in AutoCAD for this, right? So you can look at that. Or SOLIDWORKS, sorry. Everybody caught that, or was it just me? Yeah. All right, so I'll just do it here. Open a sketch. All right. Mouse gestures, you see that, how quick that was? I pulled that line. All right. Come here. And maybe I need that dimension, right? I want it to come here, but I really need that dimension up here, but dadgum, that thing just keeps flipping around. Well, if I hit, everybody see on the mouse icon itself, it's got that right button highlighted, and it also has like a little padlock on it. If you hit that right mouse button, notice that padlock just changed. Now I can go down that direction and put that dimension anywhere without it flipping around on me, right? And I can do that same thing. If I click it again, notice it just locked or did its unlock thing again. Now I'm back to normal. And then I can go to a different direction, hit that right mouse button, now I can do the same. Right, so that right mouse button will do that for you. All right, and so the next pesky little dimension we're going to talk about is those dang slots, those arcs on drawings, right? Who likes doing their dimension from the center point? Some people do. Who likes doing their dimensions from the arcs? Who wants to know the total length of their slot, right? Well, I mean, there's ways of doing it. You can right click and maybe hit midpoint and grab that slot edge, right? But if we, come here, grab our dimension. Notice when we normally come out here to this edge, it's going to give us the dimension centers, right? What if we want to know that total distance? Well, like I said, there's a long way. You can go in and right click it and hit midpoint and it'll grab it for you. But you can actually do it on the fly if you hold the shift button and select out on the outer edge. It automatically picks that outer edge for you. That was a mind-blowing thing when I learned that when I first came to the world. All right. Oh, lost my slide. Let's go back here. Display as diameter is another good one. I won't illustrate that, but if you come out and you're putting your radius, your diameter dimension out there, a lot of times you have to go back to your command manager or your properties tab, right, and you have to select leader, and then you come down, you have to select diameter or radius there. Well, with this, you can actually just right-click the dimension, go down and hit display as diameter or display as radius, whichever way you want to flop that. Break extension lines. This is so simple. I don't know a lot of people that do this. It drives me nuts. And I know back in college 101, I got some friends that work in colleges here. Drafting 101 says we really shouldn't be overlapping dimension and extension lines, right? But you see it all the daggone time. What if you have a situation where you really need to because there's nowhere else to put a dimension? Well, you can break those lines and make your drawing a lot cleaner, right? And how do you do that? So once you place your dimension there, you go into that tab, like I said, leaders, and the leaders is the same place we talked about diameter and radius a minute ago. And if you hit that checkbox that says break lines, you can actually tell what lines you want to break and how far in distance you want to break them in. This will really clean up your dimensions on your drawings, right? Status bar info. Love this tool. Who uses the measure tool and measure stuff? Yeah, it's a great tool, and sometimes it's the only way you can do it, right? But did you know, and I'll jump over to SOLIDWORKS here. That's what I'm doing. That you can actually click multiple surfaces without even touching your measure tool, or just say one line, right? What if I need to know the height of this guy? Well, if I just click that line, if you look down here, what popped up? Yeah, it just told me that line was 10 inches, so that means that's 10 inches high, right? Well, what if I needed to know the distance that this is from here? Well, without clicking measurement, right there it tells me when I control select both surfaces. I can do the same, and I illustrate that in the PowerPoint slide on the one in the back, where I'm doing an angle and a surface, right? And it's telling me the angle of that. You can do that with diameter. You can do it with a lot of different things. You never have to touch the measurement tool. These are things that are going to speed you up and have less commands and tools that you're utilizing, but tools that you can utilize, right? So that's down the command line. All right, next one, Windows File Explorer. This is really cool, and this will save you some headache in the future. Who deals with some large assemblies? Okay, so is there times when you have to just open it and go get a cup of coffee or a water or a soda? I know I'm one of those guys sometimes, right? Or maybe go shop on Amazon while you're waiting at the load. Yeah, I'm guilty of that one too. But if you go into your system options, or right here in your system options, you go to General, and you check that box that says Show Thumbnail Graphics in your Window Explorer. Look what happens, all this data that I'm getting. I can right-click and actually tell more data, so that the Windows Explorer icon or box is right here, right? That's just your standard Microsoft box that lets you see information. But when you turn this on, look what it's telling me about this file. It's saying the last time it opened in 15 seconds. Well, what if you're getting ready to open a big file and you want to know, hey, do I need to take some time out to open this? Well, it's going to tell you, hey, it took 5 minutes to open last time, 15 minutes to open last time, 15 seconds to open last time. Also, we'll tell you your rev level, your number of sheets, so it gives you an illustrated list of some information you may want to know before you even open the file, right? Or maybe you're opening the file just to find that out. You don't even have to open the file, it's right there. Once you hover over it, once you have that thumbnail checked, and you hover over that file inside your Windows Explorer, it'll illustrate that information for you. Okay. Search bars, love them. I hope everybody uses them. There's a lot of them. They're everywhere. SOLIDWORKS has made it so convenient for us to be able to get the job done and figure out how to do the job, right? Even so much that in the new version of SOLIDWORKS, this one search bar in this GIF that's playing is now in your what key? Anybody remember? S key, great, yeah. It used to always be in the S key before. I don't know if anybody knew that. If you have an older version of SOLIDWORKS, technically it was there. When you hit S key, it just defaulted up there and you could start typing. But they said, well, not a lot of people knew that. It wasn't pretty much in your face. So now they put that command in your S key box with your flyout menu, with your shortcuts. All right, and I'm not gonna jump into the S key and shortcuts too much here because that's earlier tips and tricks. Great thing about that is, though, is you can not only type into that search box, but you can type in there, you can activate the command, you can see where the command lives, you can drag that command off and onto your command manager. You can build your own tab if you want, which I suggest doing. That's not a bad idea. Have a tab that says My Tab, Joe's tab, you know, Betty's tab, whatever. Throw everything you need on that tab, just like you do your mouse gestures, just like you do your hotkeys, and then you know where everything lives, right? So that's there. It's also in your system options. Who's always got, I know not always, but sometimes has an issue and you're trying to figure out, man, I know that settings in the system options or document properties somewhere, but I can't find it. Well, if you can just think of a hint or a keyword, you can type it in there and it'll take you to the location it's at and you can fix it. Don't forget about your feature tree, right? The feature tree, see that little filter? You can filter things. You can filter suppressed, unsuppressed, hidden. You can type in there. If you know the name of a part you're trying to find, it'll filter it down for you and go right to it. So that's another search area. Yeah, filter out hidden and suppressed stuff. So if you got stuff hidden or suppressed, you don't want to see it in your feature tree, you can filter that stuff out. Power of the selection tool. This one's a mind blower too. Especially for those with large assemblies. So we all know the selection tool. It lives up there at the top of SOLIDWORKS, and it's usually just selected by default. We're usually just clicking around, or we're going window left to right, or window right to left, right? That's typically what we do. But if you realize there is a drop-down menu, and there's a lot of functionality in that drop-down menu that will save you a lot of time. Like finding identical components, or selecting everything by a view, right? And then a real nice bonus feature is by volume. And this is where it's going to help you with those large assemblies. And I'm going to show you this because it's a really awesome tool. It'll save your open times like none other. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to SOLIDWORKS for this. Now I've got a body. So I mentioned I work for Altec. We do utility trucks, digger derricks, like I said, utility trucks and wood chippers, do all kinds of stuff like that, right? Mostly for utility companies. But I've got a body I'm going to open up here. And that body takes a couple minutes to open, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit open. Went ahead and put that there, so I had that. Okay. Again, so it takes a little bit to open. But everybody knows about LDR, right? Large design review. Large design review is good if you're reviewing something, maybe you're trying to make markups for a colleague where you're checking their design or whatever, right? But let me show you how to use it a little more efficiently and productively. So we're going to go to LDR and we're going to open this body. And I mentioned it takes several minutes to usually open this when you do it resolved. But when I open it now, done. It's opened, right? But what if I needed to work on this? Well, I can't work on it. It's all LDR, right? Well, check this out. In that selection toolbox, there's a tool called Volume Select. Okay. Now it's basically saying you need to drag a box around something. So I'm going to go to my top view. I'm going to drag a box around this first compartmentation on the street side. Then I'm going to go back to my isometric view so I can see it a little bit more. And we see this box is kind of here, right? Now I can drag the volume select box up and down. Maybe I want to get those first two shelves involved. Maybe I want to go all the way into that next compartment, so I got to put the full compartment width, so we'll do that. Now what does this benefit me, right? Well, if you go up to the top here and do selective open, and hit this drop down, I'll show you what it does. Selective open in lightweight, so you can move this to lightweight. That'll also save you some open time. But if you just hit it, it's going to automatically default to selective open. And so if we hit selective open, do selected components only, open selected. In a matter of just a couple of seconds versus several minutes, that's maybe all I needed to work on in that large assembly. It is fully resolved and ready to roll. Now I can do whatever I need to do. After I've looked at my big assembly in LDR, right? I opened it up quick, I moved around inside there, I found where I needed to work, I did volume select, I resolved just that section, and I'm going to work there.
Anything you change there will be saved in the main file.
Correct. Yep, because it's fully resolved at that point.
You're still in the main assembly, right?
Yeah, you're still in the main assembly, yeah. Basically, all it did is it changed you out of the large design review to being full resolved. Because large design review just allows you to open the model quick and get in there, maybe make some markups for a colleague, whatever. You're just reviewing it. It's what it is. You're reviewing it. And so you really can't do much. Lightweight you can, but then you can toggle it and resolve some lightweight stuff. So if you wanted to open lightweight, you could do it that way too. That'll speed it up a little bit, and then you're just resolving what you want to work on inside of that volume select. So you're actually even kind of streamlining it even more. But yeah, if you got a model, maybe you're doing some big assembly that's 10 minutes to open. I mean, you just open the section you need to work on in a matter of a minute or two, because you're not having to resolve everything in that large assembly, but only what you need to focus on.
And will that leave everything suppressed the next time you open it if you save it this way?
It does not. Nope. Doesn't leave anything suppressed. It is more of an isolate, yeah. So basically what it does is it selects inside of that volume and anything that crosses those lines. Sometimes and it depends on your box select too, right? Are you selecting inside the box or are you selecting outside the box? Everybody knows your left to right versus your right to left, what's in the box versus what's crossing the lines of the box. And so that applies here too. If I'd have went the opposite direction, I'd actually grabbed more things that that volume select actually intersected. No, they're kind of, so they're, yeah, it basically just pulled that information. You're only working on that information. I don't even think they're suppressed. They're just not even there. It's basically, I don't want to call it a subassembly because it's not a subassembly. It's still the main assembly. It's just.
So those parts aren't free to move if they're made?
No. No, I mean, you could move these parts, but anything that was not selected in the volume select is not there for you to do anything with.
Right, but I wouldn't want these parts to move because they're made into something that's not showing.
Correct. And so I can see what you're saying. You don't want piece parts to move. So the answer to the question is that he doesn't want piece parts to move because they're made or selected to something else. So that's maybe where you get the scope of what you want to work on, what area, and use that volume tool, because I want pieces to move inside this compartment because it's mated or related to what's inside that compartment. Yeah, clever with your mating skills or what you're selecting, and are you tying to something that's outside of that volume select? Of course, you don't want to move that because it's tied somewhere else, right? But if it's inside of your volume select, yeah, move it around, copy it, mate it inside of that volume.
Or maybe determine your base part of this selection and fix it temporarily.
Yeah, and then go back, yeah. Or make your volume selection bigger if you need to incorporate outside of that area. Question way in the back.
Can you deselect any of those parts that you've got selected right now? Let's say you don't want to work on those parts, can you deselect them?
Well, you could suppress, I wouldn't suggest suppressing them, but you could definitely hide them. I wouldn't, if you're planning on using them in the long term, don't suppress them, just hide them, yeah.
Can you change your volume or go back?
No, you can't. So it's kind of fine-tuned right there. When you do that volume select, that's what it's going to open. The only way to redo it is to close it, go back, redo your LDR, and reselect your volume. Oh, I got one more. Joe, my buddy Joe in the back.
If you get my question up front, you can't hear it in the back, can you repeat the question?
Yes, sir. Will do. So we had a question, was talking about deselecting and stuff in the back, and he said, he basically was curious, can you deselect these? My answer was, you'd rather hide them than suppress them because you may use them later. You don't want to mess up with your bill of materials or anything else in the future. And then this question over here was in regards to going back and reselecting or rechanging your volume that you select. And the answer is no, you can't. You have to reopen your LDR and reselect your volume. And back to you, I'm sorry.
Is the volume selection a crossing window or only in the volume?
Both. So it depends on which way you go with that box. Yep. Left to right, right to left. Yep. So this one I did left to right, it was only what was in. So if I went right to left, it would have grabbed all the other stuff. And you would have seen more. You would have seen the back panel there. You would have seen probably some cross members in the floor. So I'd have pulled some of that in because, yeah, like you asked, it would. So the question was, can you select other stuff? Does it do the left to right versus right to left? Will it select only in the box versus what crosses the box? And yes, that is independent on the which way you draw your box when you do your volume select. All right. So I'm going to go and illustrate this one more, at least one more scenario and something different with the selection tool, just because I know this has got to affect people. Who has fasteners or something of that nature in their model and they have lots of them, right? They're probably the same. Yeah, exactly, right? So a cool thing with the selection tool here, if you hit the drop down and select identical components, and I select this one, look at that. It select every weld nut that was in that assembly. They were skipped around down through here. I did not have to go through my tree to figure out where they were, what numbers they were, and select them. I just hit select identical component, and it did that. Notice it did not hit select the smaller one because it was not the identical component. That's based off file name.
If those are in a subassembly, will it still select those, or it's just whatever's in that main top assembly?
We can try it. Yeah. Because these are sub-assemblies. Let's go select identical component. Come Come on, SOLIDWORKS, you can do this. Nobody ever gets a SOLIDWORKS freeze, do they? Yeah. So it may be digging in that reference file, you know, where we've done this volume select here. So it may be digging, that's probably it's churning a little bit. But I would think the answer is yes, because it's still in that big file. And so it basically looks through the feature tree for all the identical naming.
Adam, can you do that in a drawing?
I've not tried that either. That's a good question. Well, we're waiting on SOLIDWORKS. We're going to let SOLIDWORKS spin. Hit me up at the end and we'll look at that one for sure.
She's mad that you called her AutoCAD.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. All right.
Question, Adam. Do you know when you're doing multiple selections like that, or any number of items, no matter what the type of object is, have you ever seen a way for SOLIDWORKS to display how many items are selected? That's one thing I think that's been missing.
I have not seen that. Bill of materials on the drawing. Yeah. You can do bill of materials inside the model too. So, I mean, you could technically get that information if you wanted to insert a bill of material in your assembly.
That would tell you the total number, sure,
Yeah.
not of a selection.
Not of a selected part, yeah. So, yeah, I haven't seen that, no. Grouping mates. Anybody deal with ketchup and mustard? Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Yep. With grouping mates, it's really going to be a benefit, and hopefully SOLIDWORKS is back because I'd like to show this too. We have this ketchup and mustard we deal with sometimes, but if you can somehow organize that a little bit better, you can deal with it better, right? You know where they're all grouped up. You can maybe work at it one at a time. So if we jump over to SOLIDWORKS, hopefully it's going to play nice. No, I think she's locked down.
Sorry.
Yeah. Let's do Task Manager. We're going to kill it and just reopen it.
This is a bonus tip.
Bonus tip, Control-Alt-Delete Task Manager or right-click on your toolbar. And then when you hit the SOLIDWORKS, you hit the Delete button, and we're going to kill it. Okay. Control-Shift-Escape, yep. Exactly. Love hotkeys. We're still open though. All right. Was that it? Yeah, be better if I read, wouldn't it? There it is. Yeah, let's run down through here. Nice one. There we go. Okay.
Supposed to say I win.
I win. Fatality. All right, so we'll let that load up. Turn that back off. Let me kill this add-in that we've got. Otherwise, you're going to be seeing all kinds of other stuff pop up that you don't want to have to learn or deal with. All right. Okay, so we're looking at grouping mates. Bear with me one moment while I get this back up. use this guy for this example. All right. So, if I open that, come back, I'm just going to do a replace with that part. Yeah, let's do that. All right, see how I just jacked that assembly up, right? We got lots of ketchup and mustard. So if we come down here to mates, I can expand that. And I can see how the ketchup's really just everywhere. There's really not much mustard here. So usually you have both. So you'll right click on mates, and you're gonna group mates by status. And now you have all your solved mates in one folder. And then if you had mustard, you'd have it in one folder, and you'd have your, your red ketchup mates in another folder. And of course, this helps you solve your hardest problems to maybe some of your not hard problems, and hopefully resolve the issue you have. So it's a very, very useful tool. We'll leave that like that for just a moment.
Is that dynamic that will update as you resolve one and bumps to the other group?
Yes. Yep. So as you solve them, it will go to solved and so on and so forth. Yep. I can't hear you. I'll ask you to repeat that. But so it was asked, the last question, just to repeat that. The last question was, is that dynamic? Do those mates move between, as you solve them, they'll move out? So, and the answer is yes.
Next question is, can you group all your mates together, the ones that are by type? Yeah, by type.
By type, I think in the newer version, I think you can maybe group them. I know you can group them by status like I just did here, and it separates them out that way. But you can put stuff in folders and stuff and make folders.
Adam, you can probably use one of your own tips. You can search your feature manager for parallel and then filter.
Yep. There you go. Yeah. So in the feature tree, search, yeah, because that, like I said in the earlier one, yeah, the feature tree, when you search in that, you can search for anything, not just components or parts. You can search everything in there. So, yeah. Search for parallel, and then it'll reduce it down to parallel. One question. The question from this gentleman back here was, can you kind of group them? Can you see certain mates together? And yeah, you have this group by status and such. But yeah, using one of the earlier tips by searching in the feature tree, you can reduce it there. Sorry.
So you just right-click your group, top mates.
Yep, I'll go back to that for you. So it's probably not going to be here, but yes, at your groups here, or I'm sorry, at your mate, you right-click on that, and you go group mates by status. And notice it's a toggle, it's a check, so you're checking it on and off, and that's what makes it dynamic. Right? So the question was just how to get back and group those mates again. That's how you do it. All right, back to the PowerPoint. I think we're back. All right, so the master undo button, the oops button, right? This is a great one because I already screwed up that floor. I grouped my mates and maybe I didn't need to. Maybe that was the wrong part I inserted. I can go up to File, Reload, and it's checked, and I hit OK. And it all reloaded back to what it was before I screwed everything up, right? We all need a master undo button sometimes, don't we? Yeah, that oops button. Now, keep in mind that only goes back to your last save iteration. So if you do something, you save it, that's not going to work only back to that point. Sketch Expert, this is pretty nice. This helps with that ketchup and mustard in your sketches. And how do we work with that? Let's go here. Let's do, what do we want to do here? Let's do this one. Okay, so let's say I grab a line, I'm doing it for construction, and I put it here to here. This is the way I illustrated it in the PowerPoint, just to kind of show you. Right now, there's no issues, right? Everything's fine. But the minute I hit this line and I tell it I want it to be vertical and have that vertical relationship, of course, everything goes crazy, right? So now everything's got ketchup and mustard. And I show this as a simple answer to maybe a larger issue, just for simplicity of it, right? But how do I fix that? How do I know what's causing that issue in the sketch, right? Well, does everybody see down here in the command line here, it says no solution found, it's red. If you double click that or click it, it's gonna throw it over here on your pane and give you the sketch expert, right? And you can manually repair it, or you can diagnose it. And this allows SOLIDWORKS to go in and look at your sketch and figure out solutions that could be possible for you, right? So if I hit that, notice it popped up and it said solutions are showing solutions as 1 of 4. So SOLIDWORKS has evaluated my sketch issue, said you have 4 possible outcomes to resolve this and get rid of your ketchup and mustard, your errors, right? And your over definitions and conflicting issues, right? So I can look at those, and it says the first one, so I'm on 1, and it says the first one, if you can see it up here, it's basically saying get rid of that vertical relationship. Right, of course, that's what caused the issue, right? So if I hit next, the next solution is going to say, okay, you really want it to be in the middle, then get rid of the length and stretch it all the way across. But that's not really what we want either. The next one says, you really want it in the middle, then get rid of the dimension that's holding it to the side. Maybe that's what we wanted. Maybe that's ultimately the outcome, because we cognitively clicked that line and told it we want it vertical to the center from that midpoint, right? So maybe that's what we do. So we can hit accept. We'll go one more though. We'll look at all 4 of them. Now it's basically just saying get rid of the midpoint relationship there where it's connected, right? So if we could flip through here multiple times, it's not limited to one go around, and we hit accept, and then SOLIDWORKS is going to automatically fix that when we accept it and check it off. Right? And again, that's simplicity. That's really on a smaller scale of what you can do on something bigger. Accessing planes with ease. So a lot of people make things by planes. It's a good way to do it, getting it to the origin, whatever you're doing, right? So one of the most simplest ways to access your planes drag this in, is your breadcrumbs. Select your part, use the D key. It brings your breadcrumbs to your window, which I'm a huge proponent of breadcrumbs. The only reason I didn't do it on some of this confirmation tabs, because to bring that confirmation tab to your mouse too, is because I've got an external macro pad that I use, and so that's where my D key and everything lives, so I'm habit of hitting over here, so that's why I'm clicking around. But yeah, the D key brings it to you. You can select the part, and you can grab the plane you want. Well, maybe I need this to be kind of oriented like this. I need this plane for this one, but I also need this plane for this one too, because I need those planes to align. Well, in using breadcrumbs, it's only going to let me do it with the first part. How do I get to the planes in the second part that I need to align it with? Right? That's the problem. How do we solve it? So in this, if we're needing multiple planes in this, we're going to get rid of breadcrumbs, not use breadcrumbs, but we're going to select the 2 parts, because who here knows if you turn all your planes on in a large assembly, it's going to look like hammered dog leg, right? So yeah, it can really get cumbersome and cluttered, and it's hard to see. So if I just select the 2 parts and I come up to my little eyeball and I poke my eyeball, right, I can say the planes for just those parts. So now I've turned on my planes, because it's going to show your origin planes, and that's why you're seeing that extra plane in the back. But if you're in a large assembly, You select those two parts or sub-assemblies, whatever you're looking at, right? You select just those and tell it to turn the planes on just for those pieces, sub-assemblies, parts, whatever you're doing. Okay.
That only works if they're visible in the component, or does that work regardless?
Regardless. Yeah. Yeah, they don't have to be visible in the component, because I never keep my planes on.
I don't either. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, I hate planes. Unless I'm mating, then I love them. Other than that, I hate them. Unless I'm mating or starting to sketch or extruding or doing something of that nature, I don't really mess with them. But yeah, mating, it's definitely fun. Otherwise, they just get in the way and make things hard to see. But they are crucial and they are needed. Okay. Don't forget Control-Shift-Tab, and I bring this up because a lot of people know about Control-Shift-Tab, but I'm going to take this one step further for you in the next slide, so just bear with me a second. So, of course, everybody knows Tab does what? It hides, exactly. Whatever your cursor's over, it's going to hide. Shift-Tab does what? Unhides whatever your cursor is over, right? And it does it from the furthest thing back to the forward, because you don't want to bring the front thing up and then lose the one in the back, right? So it's going from the back to the front and the way you're viewing the window. Control-Shift-Tab makes everything transparent, and you can select what you want to bring, right? But I'm going to flip the script on this a little bit, because it was brought up, what with the volume select, that it was kind of like an isolate, right? What if I really only needed to see this? I'm thinking large assembly here, right? Just on a simplified version, and I go to isolate everything to this, right? Maybe I have a couple components, maybe it's a big assembly, whatever, right? Everybody may not know, but inside of isolate, there's actually different modes of isolation, right? You can isolate to where you see nothing but what you're seeing. You can show the wireframe so you can see some other stuff there. You can go transparent. You can go hidden. Hidden is what it defaults to. But think of this, right? You're in a large assembly, but don't forget about tab, Control-Shift-Tab, all these things, because when we use those, we're in isolate. Now we can actually select what we want to unhide while we're in isolate, because all isolate's done is hidden everything for you. So within isolate, don't forget your Control-Shift-Tab to select maybe something you want to bring back that you didn't isolate along with everything else. Transparency when mating, right? There's a couple ways to achieve this. A lot of people will just turn it on when they go to mate stuff. It's that bottom selection box there. You see it kind of circled, an arrow pointing to it, says make first selection transparent. That is nice, because if you got something that's in front of something else, a part in front of something, another assembly or whatever, and you go start mating, it makes it transparent so you can pick through it and pick those items behind it, right? But if you don't have that selected, maybe you're not a fan of that. Maybe we go back here, exit isolate here, and maybe we want to mate this, but we don't want to mate it here for some weird reason. I'm just using this as an example. Once I initiate mate, right, if I hit the Alt key, just like the Tab key, we're hiding things. Whatever my cursor's over, if I hit the Alt key, it's going to start hiding surfaces, right? And now I can select behind those things. And that works. So, and for example, what makes this better is because even if you have that box checked, it's only making that first part transparent to select the other one, but maybe that first part's not what you need transparent. It's the assembly or something in the assembly, and you need to get to that back wall. So hover your mouse cursor over wherever you want to make it transparent, and you can start hiding those surfaces. And jump back over here. Shift Alt, just like Tab and Shift Tab. Shift Alt will do the same thing as the hiding feature with parts, right? But it's going to do it with the surfaces, and it's going to bring them back from the ones in the back all the way back to the front. So just like you're hiding and unhiding parts, you're hiding and unhiding surfaces and making those transparent. So again, Alt is taking them away, Shift Alt's bringing them back. Of course, if you exit your mate, it's going to bring them back anyway. So. All right, isolate powered up actually jumped ahead of schedule because I just tied it in with the 2 slides behind. So we're going to skip this slide, save us some time. Anybody have a problem moving sketches around? And you try and move them and some moves and some doesn't, or they just get all distorted and out of whack? I'll show you a little trick about that one. Move sketch. Let's go ahead and edit this. So this is just kind of floating out here. And if I was to go in here and grab this and move it, just like you see, it would just probably not do what you want it to do. I want to move everything up here, but look what happens, right? It didn't work. So let me go ahead and, another favorite tool, it's not Master, but it's Control Z, and it helps a lot too, right? But who knows how to copy a sketch or a part or whatever with the Control button? Right? It's a pretty standard Windows feature. You hold down Control, you drag it, move it, and it copies it somewhere for you. Well, you can do the same thing in sketches. You can do the same thing in parts within an assembly, and I'm going to show you another cool trick here in a minute after this. But I can go in here, and if I hold Control down, the whole thing is moving. Now look at my cursor. My cursor is showing you that it's got a little plus sign on it, right? That plus sign is saying that it's making a copy of that sketch. But now that I've grabbed that sketch with my Control held down, like I'm making a copy, once I release my Control, I'm no longer making a copy, but I can move that sketch without any issues. So I'm kind of saying I'm copying it, but then I'm like, nah, I'm not copying, I'm just moving it. So use Control to grab your sketch and move it, then release Control before you drop it. Okay? So the copy features with Control is what I mentioned a minute ago, and I'm going to go ahead and open this just to kind of illustrate it so we can build upon this, because a lot of us already know that we can take a feature or a part and we can copy those by holding down Control, just like we mentioned, hold Control, grab the feature, and move it. Now it's telling me, hey, do I want to leave these dimensions dangling or delete them, whatever, or we'll just delete them. Now look, I made a copy of that feature just by holding Control and dragging it. Pretty cool thing. You can do it in assemblies with other parts. You can do it planes, whatever you want to do there, right? But we're going to expound on that. Did you know you can do it across windows? Okay, so what am I talking about that? Well, if I come up to my view, display, no, where am I looking at? Window key, yeah, sorry. Yep, that's what I'm looking for. So I do them horizontal here. There's a lot of them going on. I should have just made them a little smaller. But I can actually take, yeah, I'm gonna go back the other way. I'm gonna make this guy smaller. And where's an assembly at here? Where's my floor? Either way, we're going to do it with this. So I can take this feature from here, or part. So I was trying to find an assembly. And copy it across. So now I know I've got a feature over here and it needs to match this same feature on another part. I can use that Control button. So I just stepped up the notch a little bit. All right, I went to the next level on this tip and trick and said, instead of doing it within the file, I'm taking it to another file within SOLIDWORKS. And you can copy parts that way. So if you've got a part open in one window and you want to put it in another window, control it over there, drag it, and drop it off. features, parts, whatever you want to do.
And when you copy and control that feature, what model item dimensions are associated with that?
So it goes off whatever's defaulted. It should, translate. So if you're going from inches to metric, and I don't deal with metric much, but in theory, it should take it, drop it off, and it probably should convert that over to metric so you can see it, because your file is saying you have to have metric. But it should keep that same measurement, that same dimension. The only thing you're doing, you just got to decide whether you want dangling dimensions, delete the dimensions that are constraining that feature to its location. I see another. Yeah, the question was, what happens if you have, maybe conflicting units from one file to the next? How does it keep that information? If it's inches to inches, metric to metric, and whatever you're doing, it's going to keep it. It's just going to keep the diameter, say that hole. But then you decide whether you want to dangle or delete the constraining dimensions. But it should also, in theory, take it, move it over from inch to metric because your file is dictating the unit of measure. Yeah, sketches work as well.
Maintain the maintenance for the sketch relations.
So if the sketches, the dimensions, the relations are within that singular sketch and not tied to, say, an edge or a location, then you should be fine. I've actually done it and taken features or sketches and pulled them, and it's a little cumbersome. It doesn't play nice. You actually got to almost kick it and force it to do it. But you can actually take the features or sketches from a part and throw them into an assembly. So, and I have an example, and I've tried it, but it's just, like I said, you got to kick it and really force it to do it. Let's say, and the example I used in a previous presentation is, I've got this plate that mounts to this floor on this body, right? I need that cutout pattern from that plate to be on this floor because that's what they're going to bolt to. Well, I can grab that sketch, pull it out, throw it on that floor in the assembly, and force it in there. But again, it doesn't play nice and takes a little more work than what you really want to demonstrate for here.
Is there a quick tip to flip it over? Because a lot of times it does it backwards.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the hotkey. Does anybody remember that there is a key that allows you to switch it? It's like control or space bar or something like that allows you to flip. Tab. There it is, tab. Yeah. Not something I run into very often, but I do, yeah, it does happen. It's tab. Good question. So the question is, how do you flip it if it's not in the right orientation? Answer's tab. This is one that I just don't understand why SOLIDWORKS doesn't do by default, right? Anybody deal with large patterns, right, in geometry that they're patterning? Yeah. They can really bog down your machine, especially once you put that in there and then you put it in something else and you added something else. Maybe you got 5 of these files in one file to make an assembly. That time it takes for it to generate the visual graphics and calculate the math for all that, it's excruciating, right? But they don't do it by default. I really feel like they should. So SOLIDWORKS, if you're listening, default geometry pattern. Geometry pattern really will cut down on a lot of that. This is just a small file, but you can see the difference here when I did a performance evaluation, where it went and it shaved off, about 40 seconds, 39 seconds.
Geometry pattern is one of those that doesn't stick. I always.
Yeah, it does not stick. You're right. I prefer it too because it saves a lot of time, especially when you're adding a lot of this stuff together. Sorry, it's 39 milliseconds. But, and this is a very small file. Yeah. And as she said, geometry pattern doesn't stick. It's not there by default. SOLIDWORKS, if you're listening, let's let it stick if we want it, or let it go by default, because it will save us a lot of time. Again, this one went from, reduced us by 39 milliseconds there. It's a small file, but imagine multiplying that by a lot more of these plates or multiplying it by a bigger file. That time adds up, just like mouse miles do. Selecting edge lines, we're running a little short on time, so I'm going to kind of go through some of these a little quicker. Select tangency, right? So if you need a loop of an edge on a part or something, if you right select an edge, you can select tangency and it'll select everything that's tangent to that line all the way around. So you don't have to select each one. Select chain, if you're in a sketch and you got tangent, non-tangent, whatever crossing through, you can right click on one of the lines, select chain, and it'll select everything that's connected. The bonus is previously selection. I may have to show this just because this is worth showing. How many times do people select things and they're selecting multiple surfaces or parts or whatever it is, and all of a sudden they're clicking around holding that control button and oops, they accidentally selected off of it. And you may have selected 50 dang surfaces, right? And then you're kicking yourself, cussing your computer because you accidentally selected something all wrong, right? And you gotta go back and reselect it. Well, if you immediately after you do that right select, you can actually reselect the previously selections. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Little bonus. This is one that a lot of people, and I'll illustrate this one real quick because this doesn't take too long. This works for lines, splines, and circles, but you got to treat them a little bit with more finesse. I had a co-op that came in, and he designed this plate, and he went line, 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 line. And he had like 5 segments in each line. You really only need to be one line, right? And yeah, it was a chore to go in and fix with how much he had done. But if I come in here and I go to this sketch, I pull this out to the side here, and I had this set up for the class before I came in. Let me just come in and do that. Let's go ahead and trim that, delete that. We're going to grab this arc here. We're going to do just a couple of sections on it. So we'll do that one. Then we'll hit enter to restart that command so I don't have to click it again. And then we come here and here. Okay, so I'll just do these couple. I didn't get that one to pick its point. But you get the error menu like I showed in the slide when you try. Again, like maybe this is the co-op I mentioned had 5 segments of lines that should only have been 1, or maybe did the circle this way. And you go in, you try and fix it, and you hit delete, and it's like, dang it, you can't delete a freaking endpoint unless it has some relationships. But if you go in there and make it co-radial, and you can do this to all of them. Once you make it co-radial, then you can get rid of it. And now it's 1 line instead of 2. Okay, you can do that with, like I said, circles, co-radial, and let me just jump back over here. So you can do that. There's the thing, co-radial, collinear, and tangent spline. So if you use those relationships at those endpoints, you can delete those endpoints to make it continuous in 1 line versus segments. Control while sketching, and we'll go shift while sketching next. We're right at time. Control while sketching. If you're out here making a line and you don't want to use a relationship, you can see in these top pictures it's making a horizontal relationship and a concentric relationship. If you hold down control, it momentarily turns your relationships off. So you can see the bottom when those relationships, the yellow squares aren't there. So control will turn those relationships off momentarily so you don't have to abide by those rules you preset. Another good one is shift while sketching. This is nice. If you have it set up, right, you can go into document properties, you can set up grid snap, you can set up your major grid spacing being 1 inch, your minor will be 4 segments of that. So if you're doing 1 inch, 1/4 inch increments, right, and you can actually set it up even smaller than that. If you hold the shift button while you're drawing the line, it will snap to those increments. Middle mouse wheel will allow you to rotate around an axis. So if you just click middle mouse wheel on a surface, it'll rotate about that surface. But if you're looking straight on something, you only want to rotate while you're looking that, hold the Alt button, and it'll actually stay in that orientation of that view and rotate there. Anybody like mouse gestures? Anybody have issues using mouse gestures in a big assembly because they won't come up because you need a blank space to see them? hold down the Alt button, and your mouse gestures will work while you're over top of something. Just running through these real quick because we're out of time. Everybody uses sectioning to look at things. You actually have the ability not to only section in one direction, but you can section up to 3 different sections. So in this, I've sectioned, 3 times, right? And I've moved those windows, those sectioning planes in where I wanted them. But you can also unsection the components or certain components that you don't need to be sectioned, even though some are sectioned. And you can also apply transparencies as well. So keep that in mind. It's all inside the sectioning thing, right there inside of that window and those commands. My challenge to you, if you feel froggy enough, is disable your command manager. Run off hotkeys, run off mouse gestures, right? You feel froggy enough, give it a try. We'll see where you live. So just some notes you could have probably taken down. Customize, customize, customize. Remember those pesky dimensions that we talked about. The master oops button. The search bars, copying features, and of course, your group of mates and sketch experts to help fix your issues. Okay. My call to action is for you to give it a try, at least one thing, and where will you start? If you try at least one thing, you may not remember everything you're hearing at World, but if you try at least one thing, you'll be starting somewhere, and those things will start being engraved into your head. I've always said practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes habit. Aristotle said we are what we repeatedly do, so excellence then is not an act, but is a habit. Any questions? In the back.
This presentation available electronically?
They upload all the presentations via SolidWorks, 3D Experience World. At the end. So all the presentations will be available after World. The other question was, is this presentation available? I had somebody else. Any other questions? Nope. Thank you.